and the way it's sort of laid out today. Thank you all for being on. This is a new thing that Ogallala Commons is trying to, bring more people together around topics of interest. This is something that we would have loved to cover at the water conference next month, but there's lots of things. So we decided we would just use this as a roundtable and then see where it goes from there. So our topic that we're in conversation about is restoring the Tierra Blanca Creek watershed. So I'm going to start with the 15-second introductions. So I think it really helps a call if we can at least identify ourselves. So you saw those things, your name, where you're from, and your occupation, but all within 15 seconds. So Tanya, you're first on my screen. Why don't you go, please?
Yes, good morning. I'm Tanya Kleskins. I live on the east side of Canyon, and my husband and I are retired farmers. We farmed within a couple of miles of the Tierra Blanca Creek for 34 years, and it's always been of great interest.
Thank you. How about George?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is George Nestor, and I'm from Canyon. We sit on about 100 acres just east of Canyon, and the Tierra Blanca Creek runs right through us. And I own out here a Creek House Honey Farm. Sit out here.
Thank you. Bernice.
Good morning, Bernice Blassingame. I live at Canyon, Texas. I'm a retired teacher and park ranger and a volunteer with the Panhandle chapter of Texas Master Naturalist.
Thank you. Alex?
Hi, I'm Alex Hunt. I live almost on the banks of Tierra Blanca on the southern end of Canyon, and the director of the Center for the Study of the American West at West Texas A&M University, where I'm also an English professor with a lot of interest in regional literature and culture and environmental issues.
Thank you. Melanie. You got to unmute, Melanie.
Melanie Hartman, Buffalo Lake National Wildlife Refuge in Umbarger. In a second, Nick Pope, our assistant manager, will be in here as well.
Thanks, Melanie. How about you, Tim?
Hi, Tim Ingalls. I manage the Frying Pan Ranch, which is so north and west of Amarillo, but we have a couple of parcels of land about a mile north of the Tierra Blanca Creek. And then we're also working on, Darryl and I are working on a water conference that we're bringing to the Panhandle in March, and we're doing some stream restoration work on our ranch. Thanks.
John Josrin, would you go next?
Yes, sir. This is John Josrin. I live in Hereford. We have Aztecs Cattle Company. Tierra Blanca Creek runs right through our feed yard.
Thanks, John. Jennifer.
Oh, hi, I'm Jennifer McClendon with High Plains Water District. I live in Lubbock and I'm the education coordinator.
Good deal. Catlo, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Catlo Shipek with Watershed Management Group. We're a nonprofit based here in Tucson, Arizona. Good to meet all of you this morning.
Thank you. Marty, would you go next?
Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Marty Kelly. I am the Water Resources Program Coordinator at Parks and Wildlife. I'm down in Austin.
Great. Chris Dyer.
Chris Dyer out of Amarillo, Texas. My wife and I have a Pixie Hollow Urban Farm and regional coordinator with OC.
Thanks, Chris. Leanne.
Hi, sure. I'm Leanne Wiley. I'm an extension program specialist with Texas A&M AgriLife Extension. I'm housed in College Station, and I manage a program called the Lone Star Healthy Streams program that focuses on managing our livestock the best that we can due to bacteria contamination in waterways.
Perfect. How about you, Jude? You want to go next?
Hey, Darryl. So I'm Jude Smith. I live west of Beulah, Texas, if anybody knows where that's at. But I run the National Wildlife Refuges in Texas and New Mexico, eastern New Mexico. And I'm on here because Tierra Blanca Creek runs right through the middle of Buffalo Lake.
Thank you, Jude. I think that's everybody except Megan. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Megan England. I am OC's Workforce and Leadership Development Coordinator. And I'm hanging out here with Darryl, tech support and whatever y'all need this morning. So let me know if you have questions.
Thanks, Megan. Megan, why don't you put up that, please, that map of Tierra Blanca Creek? So my name is Darryl Birkenfeld. I'm Deputy Director of Ogallala Commons. And in my 63 years of life, I've been around Tierra Blanca Creek a lot because I lived 8 years in Hereford. But even earlier in my life, I would go to Santa Fe. I was going to college there. We used to go I-40, and then someone said, oh no, you should just go to Hereford and go straight west on what they call the Harrison Highway or the Grady Road. And that's a great FM road west of Hereford to get you off the edge of the Llano Estacado, the Cap Rock at Raglan. It's a beautiful site, but it's also kind of a parallel to a good stretch of Tierra Blanca Creek. So I think I realized in the early 90s, maybe even a little earlier, that this creek, the headwaters, was right out there in a pasture northeast of Broadview, New Mexico, which is really a curve in the road between Tucumcari and Clovis. But right out there, I would always be conscious whenever I went over that little stretch that, hey, there's the beginning of the Tierra Blanca Creek. And so I just want to trace it a little bit for you. It's 75 miles, as you saw in the little thing that went out in the invitation. And supposedly this Red River watershed complex is 750 miles. So that means Tierra Blanca is 1/10 of the entire watershed, which is hard to imagine looking at this map. But this is an amazing watershed historically. I was hoping he could join us today. Joe D. Rogers is archaeologist and educator, and he gave me a little bit of information that, you know, people have used Tierra Blanca Creek for at least 15,000 years, maybe longer, and that there were cultural stages. The people who came were paleoculture, archaic, woodland societies, and eventually European contact. So that is a long time to use the watershed. And for those of you who know about Tierra Blanca, you might think, well, it's usually dry. A lot of parts are dry, but historically, just again to retrace, so from that beginning there near Broadview, if you go towards the Texas New Mexico line, there's a little pavement that comes straight south off that what I call the Harrison Highway or the Grady Road. And it takes you through a nice little kind of a canyon, a small little canyon before you get to the state line. And Tierra Blanca runs through that. I would say that is northwest of the Ray community, that small little community in the edge of Palmer County. But it's just a fascinating little thing. So many natural features in our world we don't see because we're on the way to somewhere, usually in a hurry. But if you get off the beaten path, you can see really interesting stretches of Tierra Blanca Creek. That's one. Another one is just getting off at that little, what's left of Bellevue, New Mexico, and getting on that Cleachy Road and go 1 mile south, and you cross a pretty good valley of the Tierra Blanca. So already in the first 25 miles, it's really cut quite a channel. Then it comes into, crosses the state line, and in Texas, way out there in western Deaf Smith County, you have things like what used to be called Las Escarbadas, which means the scraping in Spanish. So that was on the old XIT ranch part of Tierra Blanca. And as Gunnar Brun says in the book, Springs of Texas, while there were some live springs out there, people often found water in the Tierra Blanca by just digging down into the stream bed. And as remembered and recorded by this name, Las Escarbadas. Out there is Garcia Lake too, and I suppose if there was a lot of rain historically, water could have run out of Garcia Lake and gotten down into Tierra Blanca Creek. I've never heard about that in my lifetime. Some of you might have, but back in when Coronado came across this land, he would have encountered Tierra Blanca Creek. Probably came across there at Garcia Lake, and then would have interacted with parts of his entourage would have interacted with parts of Tierra Blanca Creek. As you get towards Westway, which is 6 miles west of Hereford, you get less grassland and more into the farmland part of Tierra Blanca. And you would have come across the old Holly Sugar Mill, which is along the creek. It crosses Highway 60, 4-lane highway, so you got a pretty big bridge there on your way out of Hereford going towards Friona. It comes just on the north side of what is called the San Jose community, and goes under the bridge at 385, US 385, which is north and south. And it looks like there's not much down there, but if you can believe it, back on Memorial Day weekend, water came over that bridge on 385 in that flash flood. So if you go on further and you want to get a good look at Tierra Blanca Creek as it moves south of Hereford, just get on Country Club Drive, and it's really nice. Look, you see the golf course, which is the creek is meandering through there, meanders through what's called Veterans Park. And I think people have always enjoyed, if they've gone out there for picnics or whatever, they were conscious of the creek and the shape that it gives to that particular landscape. Going a little further, about getting close to where John Jostrin is with the Hereford Feed Yard, there was historically a beautiful water park. If you go to the Deaf Smith County Museum in Hereford, they have some wonderful black and white photos, 1909, 1911, of people on paddle boats. I mean, small little boats, not paddle boats, but fishing out there in a place that it was called in one postcard Sulphur Park. But that would have been like just east of that bridge that goes over Tierra Blanca, right there by Champion Feed Yards. So that mile or 2 miles was really flowing water area. So today that continues on. You go by White Energy's plant out there, and just a little further down on the way past the city of Hereford land, or actually pretty close to it, is a spring. I don't know if it's still working, but I've been out there, and historically it flowed 30 gallons a minute, sometimes more, 60 a minute. And so that was evidence of these springs that were all along Tierra Blanca Creek, even though it wasn't there wasn't surface water all the time flowing. There were springs along the way. Down further, of course, you get to Buffalo Lake, and as we're going to hear shortly, that is an amazing place, and the creek runs through it, and then it does an interesting thing. It starts to cut a canyon, a pretty long canyon from Buffalo Lake almost to the city of Canyon, maybe 2 miles short. And you wouldn't know that canyon is there unless you drive down into Buffalo Lake and you notice, wow, this is a canyon. Past the dam, definitely a canyon. So twice in my life, I'm not sure how, except we got to know a dentist in Hereford, and he had land, and he offered me and my other priest friend the chance to go down there and hike. So we would hike from there to Buffalo Lake. So that was about 8 miles. And what I remember about those 2 hikes in the early 90s was wild turkeys, and that this amazing canyon is down there along the Tierra Blanca, and you could be driving on Highway 60 and 4 lanes of traffic, 2 lanes either way, and never know that just like 2 miles to the south is this canyon, a really nice, beautiful canyon. Anyway, it comes to an end, and you get to the city of Canyon, and Tierra Blanca Creek comes around to the south, crosses Highway 87 by Canyon High School, to the south of Canyon High School, and to the south of St. Anne's Church, and meanders around there to where George Nestor is at with Creek House Honey, and eventually out there it joins Polydor Creek. So, and I'm pretty sure that the city of Hereford, yes, but also the city of Canyon releases treated wastewater effluent in parts of Tierra Blanca Creek, which is why it often has water through the ages, through the decades, I should say. I just wanted to kind of retrace the creek for us a little bit, because there's a lot more than any one section. But that's kind of the lay of the land, I would say. But I would like to turn our call now to three and maybe four, if they're on here, people who are users of the creek. I mean, that goes through their land or their businesses. And I would like them to share a few comments. I gave them some questions to respond to. So we'll listen to their perspectives, and that's to get to something about the current state of the watershed. So this is going to be John Josrin. I don't know if Steve Bartles is on. I see Lori is on, and Jude Smith. So John, could we begin with you?
Darryl?
Yes?
I had said to you that I got your email, and I do have an email here from you, but I don't see questions on here.
Okay.
And so I apologize. I'm embarrassed that I don't have that.
Please don't be. I can give them to you very quickly. Could you just tell us your business, the business you do that utilizes the creek? What are the benefits and advantages of the creek that it offers to you and your business, your constituents, your customers? And what are the main problems you see affecting Tierra Blanca watershed?
Okay, you may have to repeat some of that, but
okay.
So historically, many of you know, feed yards have been built on either creek beds or creek banks or on playas, and of course using the natural drainage to drain when we get moisture away from out of the pens, trying to keep the cattle dry, trying to keep the cattle comfortable. And as we've, the feed yard industry started here in Hereford, the big feed yard industry started here in Hereford, early 60s. And so as we've matured and as we've become more aware of our surroundings and our runoff, in today's world, and Darryl, I'm not correcting you, but I can't remember, other than maybe a storm event, that the city of Hereford puts any water in the creek. Okay. Now I wish Steve was on here, and Steve might know better than I, but we're in the creek right before the city of Hereford. And as far as I know, the city hasn't put any water in the creek for 20, 30 years. I wish, as I said, I wish Steve was on here. But anyway, back to the feed yard. So as we've become more aware, the Texas Cattle Feeders has done a great job helping monitor runoff. And other than, like you said, the Memorial Day flood, other than some storm events, speaking of my feed yard, we haven't had any runoff go into the creek. Well, like I said, I've been going out there since I was since 1973, and we've always had berms, a system of berms to keep our runoff out of the creek. So I don't like I said, other than storm events, I know that some feed yards here in Hereford had water get out of their containment systems with that flood, but that's those are uncommon events. We use the creek banks, as I said for runoff, because of the steepness of the banks. We have runoff that keeps the pens from being full of water, full of mud. Other questions were the current state. I being out there basically all of my life, I wish that, and I'm going back towards town now, back into Hereford. I wish that in town we would take better care of the creek. I wish Mr. Rogers was on here as well. You mentioned Joe D. He's probably the guy that knows more about past efforts to clean, but in the whole system, creek as it runs through Hereford, in the city, within the city of Hereford, there's a good, beautiful stretch, as you mentioned, Country Club Drive, that I wish we could go and clean trees and flood debris and all of that stuff out of the creek and start there to refurbish. I think the feed yards do a pretty good job of maintaining their containment systems, and we don't see, as I said, we don't see runoff in the creek. We see we might see after a flood, we might see debris that needs to be cleaned. But I would say as a whole, Darryl, that what I see of the creek on the east side of town, on my side of town, it's in pretty good shape. And the pooling of water does happen after these rain events. And the spring that you mentioned, I believe that spring is on Wade Lewis's land.
Yes.
And that spring still does have water in it. There's a place on the city land that I think, I haven't been out there enough to know, but I'm pretty sure there's still live water there also, Darryl.
Yesterday, when I came over that bridge, right there by Champion Feeders, there's water in the stream bed, I guess, left over from the Memorial Day flood.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say yes. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know where else it would come from.
Yeah, and looked really clean. So, John, thank you for those remarks. And just going to keep on moving here and get a few more perspectives before we open it up for comments and questions. Let's go to Jude next, because you're downstream, and then we'll go to Lori. So, although I do, is that Gene? Is that you on there, Gene Bosick? Can you unmute? He's somebody further upstream than Hereford, but maybe I'll get to Gene later. Jude, let's go to you next. You've got a lot of water coming down every 20 years, but you've also got some other things that you've done for management practices on Tierra Blanca. So if you have those 3 questions, can you respond to them, or just let me know and I can give them to you again?
You bet, Darryl. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I run the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Buffalo Lake National Wildlife Refuge. I've been up there for going on 21 years now. In that 21 years, we've had big flows of water come in like 2008, and of course this year. And then we've had minor slugs of water come in over the years, small rain events. This year was probably the biggest one, trying to get a feel on what kind of event it was, flood event. It's probably going to be a 25-year event. We got a lot of water in. We had 7,000 CFS coming in to the lake at Tierra Blanca Creek upstream. It went over around one of our first dams up there we call Stewart Dyke. It had standing waves of about 20 foot. It was definitely class 5 water, and it started to fill the dam up pretty quick. Given that we let water out because we didn't know how long it was going to last, and we'd rather be in control of the water than not in control of the water, out of control of it. But what we've seen, over the last couple of years is is Melanie, who's on the phone call with us, is we've killed a lot of salt cedar in that refuge, close to 1,000 acres actually. And the last 3 years we've been in what I would call a pretty good drought, and small inflows into Tierra Blanca Creek have kept what we call Stewart Marsh wet. So we've kept about 300 acres of wetland the last 3 years to 4 years. It's currently still wet. We still have water against the dam. The lake is receded, which in our opinion is a good thing, because another flood, we've got to keep it at a certain level. We've increased wetlands. We're starting to see, we've dug several ponds down below the what we call Stewart Dike. I think there's 3 of them. One we call Dead Dog Pond, and it's stayed wet for a long time, even through the drought. So we think we're seeing a little bit of resurgence of the groundwater, but it's hard to tell. Buffalo Lake, is an important stopover and what wintering and migratory route for ducks, geese, and cranes. So it falls, it provides waterfowl habitat. Generally speaking, in the Central Flyway, which we're in, the closer we can stop ducks, further north, the better off they are when they go north. So they go back in better conditions, have more ducklings and goslings and colts, which provides, as part of our mission for our clientele, which is, the general public. It provides more watchable waterfowl and birding. So having water in the lake, or at least in the upper lake, is very important to the refuge. We try, we're going to continue to, remove salt cedar. I think Mel has about 25 acres, and then we're going to be in mop up, which basically means every other year we'll go around and look for trees and kill them after we get this last 25 killed. I guess, internally we have a dam there, so we're going through NEPA on the dam right now. What we're evaluating it. I mean, it's time we look at it. The lifespan of the dam is probably near its end. They only have about a 30-year lifespan. We'll be through with the NEPA document and decide what we're going to do there. That'll all be public at some point. One of the major, the things we have is when we do get these large flooding events, we tend to pick up a lot of contaminants from upstream. And I'm not blaming anybody when we get that much rain, stuff's going to go downstream. And usually we get E. coli and fecal coliform colonies too numerous to count by state labs. That makes it where we can't let people into the water. So, that's probably one of our biggest our worries when we get the big floods in, is the water's not very clean. But that's it in a nutshell. Is there anything else, Darryl?
That's a good overview, Jude. Thank you. Let's go a little bit further down the watershed, and that would be to Lori Higgins. Curly, you're there in that beautiful canyon that people can't see. So would you be able to respond to those questions for 4 minutes or so?
I can. Hi, everybody. I kind of forgot them, but I'll try to, if I forgot, I'll ask you, Darryl. But I'm Laurie Higgins Curley, Dove Creek Equine Rescue, Dove Creek Ranch, which we, my late husband, Bob Higgins, and I are not native people here. We got here in 1990. So I think we purchased the west side of this place in 93. And then the side that we live on is in 96. So we've been here a while, and gosh, seems like for a long time, it was just a dry creek. But and so it's been like people have said, when it rained a lot, it would fill up. And then when the rain went away, it would, go away. But the Memorial Day flood really affected us because we have a horse rescue here. And the horses, we live on the north side of the canyon or of the creek in the canyon. And the horses go up on the South Canyon in the warmer weather to stay cool. And so when all that rain happened, it flooded, of course, the Tierra Blanca Creek and started flooding the land. And we couldn't get to them. We didn't have a little rowboat to get up there. So we had to do an emergency bridge, get a kind of a dam bridge built so that we could cross the water so that they would come down and that we could get up there to them. So that took about 10 days, but it was great we could get it done. So that was pretty stressful. And then, the water flooded the west side of our ranch, which is where all the trees are. We have kind of an area that's mostly grass and, some sage, but it's mostly pasture and it's great for the horses. But the west side of our place, and I don't remember how many acres it is. I'm not good at those numbers, but the creek runs through it, but there's a lot of trees. And so that area it stayed flooded all summer until like about September, because we have a pond over there. And of course that stayed very full and overflowing. So it was very interesting. I was really quite worried about when is this flooding gonna stop? So I don't know if it's because our land is lower, I don't know the topography that well, but that was a bit stressful, just not knowing how long, and I didn't really know who to talk to. But our creek has still got quite a bit of water in it. I would say it's pretty full still. So, and so we do a lot of public stuff down here. We rescue horses, retrain them, rehab them, retrain them, and then we adopt them. And we also do equine therapy. So we have two sides to the rescue. And so there's quite a few, there's people coming and going. We have volunteers. So it's daily activity down here. So of course, the water in the creek leads to the, aesthetics. People go, oh my gosh, I didn't know this existed. We get that all the time because people don't know it exists. This beautiful canyon and then the water in the creek, it's very storybook. So it lends itself to, it being this healing place that we call it. And so that's been an important, I would say, aesthetic to Dove Creek. And a lot of people know when they think of Dove Creek, they think about the beautiful creek. So I don't, we're fine with the water, although, I've been hearing that, it's not very healthy water, but the horses now have two little dirt bridges that go across so they can cross it. I do see sometimes them going in the water to cross it. So they do that often too. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but we haven't had any major issues from that I know of. So anyway, did I answer all those questions?
Yeah, no, that's a good, thank you for that thumbnail sketch of, living along the creek, and it was certainly different this summer, as you said, because every time I went over to the 168 and saw that water roiling out from under the dam, I thought, wow, that's going past your place and, probably all the way down to Lake Tanglewood. And it was a lot of water for many weeks. So just wanted to hear, thank you for that perspective. I'm going to open it up now for comments or questions for the next 10 minutes. You can ask the people who just spoke or something else that you want to comment on or ask about.
I'm happy to jump in if that's the way we'll do it, or we can raise hands, however you want.
I'll let you jump in.
Oh, thanks. So Will Masters is on the call too. And we have this water conference coming. And I think one of the things that really inspires me about some of the ideas we'll present at the water conference is sort of like a permaculture system where you'd maybe create a series of ponds, and then you could have tree plantings behind them. Or I think even there's a very interesting model, maybe even behind feedlots, where you have huge amounts of nutrients that, if you could balance the nutrient flow, and then also you have the consistent water flow because it's already in the creek shed, you could do, I think many forms of maybe like agroforestry or planting of different woody varieties, maybe something not for human consumption, but some sort of poplar or maybe bamboo or something in those areas. And so I think discussing and thinking about some of those strategies would be really helpful. And I think just in general, the more we can do to increase the sponge, the amount of organic matter, the amount of soil organic matter in those riparian reaches, it'll only make the wildlife and in some ways maybe even the rainfall more abundant if we can build that out across stretches of the watershed. So that's my main interest, I think, on the ranch land we manage. And then Tierra Blanca is really exciting because it has way more water than we even get on the frying pan. So to me, that's like the exciting area of talking about creek restoration or creek improvements. It's sort of the synthesis of human activities with nature to create something even better than what exists.
Thanks, Tim. Joe D. Rogers, are you on here? I thought I saw you.
Yes.
Would you just say something really quick about, I neglected to say the major tributary of the Tierra Blanca is Frio Draw, which is quite a long draw in its own right. And that mastodon remains was found there. So would you want to give just a couple of brief thoughts on historically the long history of Tierra Blanca and its tributary?
I'd be glad to. I wrote up a little blurb. I'm going to kind of try to shorten it a little bit. The headwaters of the Tierra Blanca out west of Escobar of the Springs, as you move in toward the line of New Mexico and the playas and that Garcia Lake and all that feeds into the Tierra Blanca. If you go across the New Mexico line in between Portales and Clovis, you're at Blackwater Draw locality number 1. And that is where they found extinct bison and stone tools that gives the name to the Clovis culture. So if archaeology has to do with human contact, then all we have to do is go back, 13, 15,000 years that people have been walking up and down this creek. We have evidence of that. You can find the stone tools all the way from the New Mexico line down into Paladura Canyon, up along the Frio, like Darryl said, with the mastodon mammoth head, that skull they found there, and along the adjacent watersheds of the Tule and the Paladura. Moving forward through the archaic, through the Paleo periods, the archaic periods, and even into the woodland, which was, for lack of a better term, Indians that have pottery and do agriculture, brings us up toward European contact. First one we know of is Coronado coming through here in 1540. That's just like 50, 60 years after Columbus. We've got Europeans out in this area, and some of his group almost certainly either explored or crossed over or moved up and down one way or another up the Tierra Blanca or its tributaries. Spaniards like to go on the crest between two. That would put them between the Tierra Blanca and the Tule, or between the Tierra Blanca and the Paladura. And we find artifacts like that out in western De Smith County. And then after them, you're going to have the Ciboleros. Pedro Vial came out here in the 1780s and mapped this area as he walked from San Antonio to Santa Fe. Try that today. And then back to Nacogdoches, mapping it out for the Spanish colonial period, and follow that with the pastores, the sheep herders that were out here that gave rise to our ranching, then the railroads, then the towns, and all of those leave a footprint of trash and, well, artifacts. I'm sorry, it's not trash. And We find that all up and down this. The Terra Blanca, if you come up on the Garcia Lake side out to the northwest part of Des Smith County, or the western part of Des Smith County, that's one of the most gradual accesses to that watershed. Go down to about Buffalo Lake and then turn right, and you're at the Tule. That's the shortest distance across the Llano Estacado. And it provided good, clean water, shelter for people to go across there for, again, 13,000 years, and there still are. Lack of a better term, it was the I-40 of the prehistoric period, and we just followed in their footprints. So and we also find them there, some human remains, but that's a whole different story. That's it in a nutshell for the archaeo and how it touches us. And they all needed water. They needed food, fuel, and water, and the Terra Blanca provided that for all of them.
Thanks, Jody.
That is so interesting. Wow.
Well, I think so.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It's a whole program in and of itself. So.
Other comments or questions? Next few minutes. Anything you noticed when you asked? Something you want to ask about?
I think Dolores might have a question.
All right, Dolores, go ahead.
I think you're muted.
There you go.
I'm curious about spring activity along there. And y'all may have already discussed that, so.
John Jostrin talked about one spring that's fairly well known. It's on private land, on that Wade Lewis land. Is there another spring besides that that's still flowing today? Yeah, that might be it, because of not just the decline of the aquifer, but also springs getting clogged by sediment.
You're good. Can I sit in here? So.
And I think Tim Ingalls has a question.
All right, Tim.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd just throw this out there because it's a little controversial, but I think Darryl, got a good mix of people together. Is I've spoken to some people at Palisades, and I think I stay have land in Palisades. And when there was that outflow, there was probably an increase in fecal coliforms, other things, and we are in that path of feedlots. And so I think TCEQ went out there and tested it, and they said it was okay, maybe after some period of time. But I'm just wondering, who would be the people that would know, how you can like remediate some of those outflows. I mean, I don't think we want to necessarily get rid of feedlots, but if there are huge amounts of nitrogen or phosphorus, I'm personally interested in nature-based solutions to help remediate that so that the whole stream shed can be healthier. So that's just another thought, how you, I don't know. I think it's great that, sorry, I don't know your name, but Aztec's cattle person came on here to talk about that. Cause I think, there's just a lot of nutrients in your system. And so those can be used for good or bad, depending on how they're managed. So.
Thanks, Tim. Jude, is that the purview of TCEQ? Those measuring those fecal coliform amounts?
Yeah, Darryl. I mean, a lot of that was done on the refuge this year, but I didn't order any of it. There was plenty of people taking water samples. I didn't need to add to it. But as we talk about remediating, like nitrates, I mean, nitrates have been identified in Buffalo Lake probably back to the 60s. And as the lake began to dry, we started farming it with the idea of trying to remove nitrates, I guess. Farming never was that successful. I mean, we grow sunflowers down there that are like the size of young saplings, cottonwood, and the same with kosher wheat. But, Melanie and I have talked about it over the years, and we've kind of nixed out farming and we've kind of allowed it to go back to grassland, hoping we can remediate some of that. But the nitrate load's pretty heavy. The thing about your like your your two big ones, E. coliform and the other one, is that with time they degrade. They kind of fall off, if you will. I mean, they're always going to kind of be in the soil, but the water with heat and whatnot, they tend to disperse or die. So it's a time game, but like for Buffalo Lake, it's always going to have some in the soil, which makes it kind of, it's got a lot of years of it being in there. But yeah, we early refuge plans showed, that's why we were going to farm it. And they did try and farm it. It just was never that successful. It's pretty dry down there, even when it rains. I know you're going to laugh, but really trying to get a good crop was hard. I mean, we grew kochia like crazy.
You can grow that.
Sunflowers, but I mean, they look mutant like, and it's a really, I want to say it's a really fertile soil, but it might be a little overly fertile, but it breaks down over time. But I mean, as soon as you get it kind of there, you get another inflow. So I mean, we kind of act as a filter, I guess, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'll just be honest with you. That lake kind of acts as a buffer for the most part, stopping the water and holding it. I mean, this year we did let out some water, but it looked like a lot of water, but it was only about 25 CFS for a couple months. And it just, when you go over 168, you're letting water out. It's in a narrow channel. It looks like a lot. It attenuates downstream. And we didn't figure we were making it more than 10 river miles downstream with the losses. So water is not static, right? So as it goes downstream, there's losses to the riparian and evapotranspiration. So probably, 10 to 12 miles was our effect downstream. Now, the flooding downstream occurred because there was a big storm during Memorial Day downstream of the dam. And that was a 5-inch rain or something. And that caused a lot of flooding downstream.
Thanks, Jude. It's good to have that. We're going to move to a couple of ideas for solutions. Yes.
There's a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you saw.
Yes, I see that. And Megan, while I'm dealing with that, could you put up the picture of Buffalo Lake when it was in its fullness? So does Garcia Lake have outflow, and does it drain in Tierra Blanca when it floods? The answer is yes. Will. But okay, we saw that one there. Look how full Buffalo Lake was. Like, this was like June 10th. And I know a lot of people put up shots of it on the internet, but I remember 2003 it filled, but it didn't get this full. I mean, this is one for the century. There was water everywhere. Now, with that in mind and that image, Catlo Shippick, I'd like to ask you to give some remarks about what your nonprofit does in Tucson, Arizona, with managing storm flows and to rebuild and restore the watershed of the Santa Cruz River.
Sure. Thanks, Darryl. I don't know if it's possible to just share a couple slides too.
It would be. Megan, can you take that photo down and let's help? Okay. I think you can. Can you just share those, Megan? Is that right?
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Yep. Well, this has been it's been great just being a fly on the wall and listening to you all and learning more. Darryl, thanks for kind of giving the blow-by-blow walk down of the creek. I was following along on Google Maps and doing kind of a virtual tour as well as with each of the speakers. So where I'm coming from is Tucson, Arizona. I actually grew up in Hereford, Arizona, not Hereford, Texas, but I just found that interesting. So this is our Santa Cruz River. It's a binational river, starts in Arizona, flows into Mexico and flows back north through Tucson. And so I'm actually a co-lead of, so I wear a couple of hats. So with my own organization, I'm a senior program director, co-founder of a nonprofit, We focus on watershed-based education with a 50-year vision of restoring Tucson's creeks and rivers, but doing that through kind of a collective stewardship action approach. And I really appreciate Lori's comments about connection to the creek, as we take people on creek walks and they don't even know the gems that are right here in our community. They're used to traveling far flung to find those gems. And so a lot of it is just reconnecting people to what we already have and then giving them a vision of how we can work together to achieve that. So with that, one of the things we're working on is how to be hydrolocal. Yes, you probably haven't heard that term before. We did make it up, but it was kind of our way to define how do we better steward our local water resources and restore our watershed and flowing creeks and river heritage without compromising the Colorado River, which is where we import through the Central Arizona Project from the Colorado River to Tucson to make up our deficit. And this is really important because how can we restore our own watershed but compromise another watershed and river system, right? So we're looking at how do we reduce or eliminate our municipal supply needs from the Central Arizona Project Colorado River, and sorry, a different Colorado River than the one that flows through Texas, just to clarify that. We're not taking your Texas's water. And then how do we make up for this demand that the municipal system is requiring, and at the same time rely more on our local waters? And so what we found is we're making use of urban stormwater runoff, so often called urban enhanced runoff. With that, we found some hydrologists that anywhere from 25 to 30,000 acre feet of a year could be harvestable stormwater without diminishing what would be a prior appropriation of downstream water rights. And so this is what happens, and a few of you mentioned what, Hereford, city of Hereford's runoff, city of Canyon's runoff. So when we develop and urbanize, we go from this amount of runoff to this amount of runoff at these different scales, from rooftop to tributary watercourses. So that delta, that difference, is what we could potentially put to beneficial use rather than having it be a destructive force. And so with that is a new water supply, but the flip side is we also have to address demand. So we're also highlighting how the average Tucsonan uses 80 gallons per person per day. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of wasted water. So we're trying to set a vision of how do we achieve 40 gallons per person per day. You can see some of the big changes are not just high efficiencies, but also in outdoor demand. So looking at stormwater, gray water as how do we reduce that outdoor demand for municipal supply. Going through this pretty quickly because I'm going to go into more detail at the upcoming conference that has been mentioned. But just to give you some context, at my own house, I use less than 10 gallons of municipal water per person per day. Now I do go a little bit to the extreme, have a composting toilet, but I still have veggies, I have fruit trees, and this is off of 10 to 11 inches of average annual rainfall. So we are probably warmer and drier than you all are. So this is the potential we have in Tucson and Southern Arizona. And in fact, our organization at our living lab, where we host thousands of visitors, we have 16 staff with offices, we have fruit trees, we have chickens, we have veggie gardens. We actually, in an average rainfall year, get our entire water supply from the sky. That's the potential we have at a typical site in Tucson. Now thinking about how do we scale that up, right? So now we have to think about what is the potential for turning an average home from a consumer into being a producer. So a producer of food, a producer of water, a producer of nutrients. So there's all of these different opportunities of reusing gray water, doing neighborhood stewardship of creeks, rivers, streets, reducing demand to harvesting rainwater, harvesting stormwater, creating those sponges that Tim was talking about. And then how do we scale that up across our community and take a one water framing of how do we still are sending water to the wastewater treatment plant. How do we make the highest and best use of that to support our water needs locally, not just for the human community, but for our natural community. We have to look at those two in tandem together because we are both connected. And so some of that is just preserving floodplain. Floodplains are the sponges of our river systems. They help replenish our aquifers. But we can also think of our streets as floodplains. So how do we do more infiltration along our urban streets? How do we reduce demands of groundwater, replenish groundwater? And then how do we offset demands through harvesting stormwater? So I'll just leave it at that, but that's kind of our approach, is working from the site scale with homeowners to businesses to neighborhoods, to restoring floodplains, harvesting water off of adjacent streets before it enters our creeks and rivers, to then working collectively through the Santa Cruz Watershed Collaborative, that one of that first slides with the map. We have over 35 partners that are all working towards this vision here in our community. So I just kind of wanted to leave it at that. I'm hearing lots of great ideas. I think the other thing I really liked was Tim's suggestion of how can we work collaboratively, or not me, you all work collaboratively with the feedlots. There's a huge potential for feedlot buffer yards, but to be productive units rather than just keeping water from moving offsite. Is how do you turn that into a productive unit to benefit the feedlots, benefit the community, as well as return flows back to the stream or aquifer. So I'll stop talking there. I'm not sure how much time I had. I don't want to overextend that.
Just right, Cutlow. Thanks for those remarks, and want to get some comments too from the team from Ogallala Life. And then maybe we have some question time, a little bit of question time for you all. Okay, but thanks for that. And again, you already let us know you're going to be at the conference on the 22nd of March and giving a much longer presentation. Let's see, what that would be
Will.
Yes, Will.
Cool. So yeah, this is awesome. We've learned a lot from some of the work that's been done in the Tucson area, and there's a few different like models or frameworks to look at this. So one has been kind of pioneered by the Malone Institute, and it is designed specifically to deal with like an incised stream channel. And certainly parts of the Tierra Blanca are incised, i.e. like right below the dam at Buffalo Lake. But I've got, I guess a lot of questions about like the state of the stream bed, and it's really long. So I'm not entirely sure this is the problem that we're dealing with throughout, but this is a good model of the incision. And then we have this natural infrastructure model, and it came out of Southeast Arizona. We've got this check dam kind of framework, which has been used in different mountainous parts of the world. Brad Lancaster does water harvesting in drylands. All of this is really cool, but the reason that I'm showing to you and the reason I'm talking about it is it all contemplates a landscape that is different from ours. Like we have a very unique landscape and kind of unique cultural context too. And so what is best for us? And I think that's why this conversation is awesome, because we get to figure that out. One of the really things about the Tierra is it originates on the high plains itself. And so the Pegasus River, the Canadian River, we've got snow melt, we've got the Rocky Mountains that help regulate the flow. The Tierra Blanca, that's not the case. There's only water there if it rains on the high plains, or kind of like through groundwater flow. So that's going to drive like the flow regimen. I really like this map, by the way. But anyway, we have surficial geology. So here is Buffalo Lake National Wildlife Refuge.
Mm-hmm.
The tan is the Blackwater Draw Formation, and it is relatively impermeable. And so whenever water falls on like the light brown stuff, it is often going to run off. It's not going to infiltrate very deep into the ground. But underneath the tan, we have the dark brown, which is the Ogallala Formation. This is porous and permeable. And as you can see, the different channels are kind of like, so you have the Blackwater Draw up top, and then you have the cut and the banks, or the Ogallala. And at the bottom, you have the alluvial, the alluvium. And so this kind of tells you like where we can store water in the ground. And I would suggest that that would be like an objective of any watershed scale approach. And so whenever it gets a bunch of rain, we want to spread that rain out over time and space so that it can sink into the ground. And then it takes like 6 months to get from Hereford to Powder Canyon instead of 2 days. And that would greatly mitigate the flood problems, but it would also mitigate drought problems because there would be water in the basin for a longer period of time and or recharge the aquifer, which would be awesome. We have some kind of like legal issues. And so like, how do you kind of capture the value of the benefit? And so if you do like effectively, let's say recharge a bunch of water, like right here, is your neighbor going to pump it? Like there's some issues there. But I think Ogallala Commons has done some really good work in terms of like demonstrating how recovering playa wetland function can improve the hydrological conditions on your property. Like even if your neighbor's pumping, it can still be worthwhile. The light green is really interesting. So the light green is the Dockham. So the High Plains Aquifer System, we have the Ogallala up top, that's the main aquifer. And then below it, we have the Dockham Aquifer. That consists of the Trujillo and the Tecovas. And there are outcrops of that. And then like this little stretch right below the lake. And I suggest, yeah, those are kind of key focal points. And I think that this kind of green target bullseye to the left is Garcia Lake, although I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. So the work we've done is not directly analogous. So the work that we've done has been on watersheds that are off the Cap Rock, like kind of down below the high plains themselves. Tierra Blanca is up top, and so it's kind of a unique case, and I'm really excited and interested in doing some work on it. But what we've done, like at Wildcat Bluff, which would be just here northwest of Amarillo, and then also another property north of Amarillo and Canadian River, are built these. Just a whole bunch of little dams, little structures, call them natural infrastructure, rock detention structures, leaky weirs. Like there's a bunch of different terms. It doesn't really matter. But whenever it does rain, the whole point is just to slow it down, let it spread out, and let it sink in the ground. And so we built a bunch of these in January of 2023. And then, as you all know, it like dumped rain in May and June. And so we got like a whole lot of feedback really fast. It was pretty awesome. Although it also like washed out some of them. But anyway, it was awesome. I won't complain about the rain. And then this year we built a bunch of larger like brush structures at Wildcat Bluff. And again, that's like it's part of the Discovery Center here in Amarillo, just northwest of town. You can go out and see it for yourself. I encourage you to do so. So Wildcat Bluff, it's West Amarillo Creek that flows through Wildcat Bluff. We have a catchment area of about 30 square miles. Like that's big compared to the country that we worked in last year. That's not big compared to the Tierra Blanca. And so it's like a whole nother order of magnitude in size, but challenge equals opportunity. Like the larger the catchment area, I think the more water that we have to deal with. And here, like water is a good thing. We just, whenever we have it, we tend to have too much, which is the problem. We just need to regulate or mitigate that. And so, yeah, we just built a bunch of like brush check dams. We built over 80 at Wildcat Bluff. We have like vertical posts, kind of like a fence post pounder that we pounded into the ground and then pulled like big dead cottonwood and dead brush and whatnot and just wove it all in there. And then we're planting some willows and some cottonwoods inside it to help hold it together. And we're really curious to see what happens whenever it rains come March, April, May, which I hope it does rain. Yeah, here's just some more. The community donated like 330 Christmas trees. Some of them were really big and like $400 Christmas trees. Like, I think it's crazy. But anyway, that was great. Like we want as many Christmas trees as we can round up next year for the same purpose. And so, yeah, like this is little structure on the left that's designed to like reduce the force of the flow. And so we have like our leaky weir, our dam underneath it. But we don't want like just unrestrained floodwater hitting that structure. And so we have like little structures above it to reduce the erosive force or impact of the flow. And then these, it's like whenever you're down there working, like these trunks are really big and it just feels like we're building something really big. And then you get up out at the creek and look down and it just kind of disappears. You know, scale is really tricky. We've had really good feed. Go ahead,
Will,
Darryl.
yeah, can you wind it up here so we can get
Yep.
this is very very informative, but could
No,
you
they're not supposed to work on their own. They're supposed to work as a system. And so I think like the more, the better. And I think that is how I can wind it up. Thank you.
Really interesting. And if you come to the conference, if you registered, if you're yet to register, this is one of the bus tours you can go on to see these leaky weirs and these structures at Wildcat Bluff, and spend an hour and a half out there learning a lot more about it. Let's see. There we go. So that was a lot of stuff to look at, but we got some perspectives. A few people got to comment. We've got, about 8 more minutes. Anyone have anything you'd like to add or questions? I want to take a couple minutes to wrap it up at the end.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Lauren.
And it might have been addressed, but my concern over the summer was, because I love the permaculture concept. Did any of the unhealthy water affect the wildlife that's around? Just wondering.
No. So wildlife's pretty tough. So no duck die-offs, no deer die-offs up on the lake. After all the years of studying it, we were even trying to ban them because I was kind of forced to ban ducks. We have not seen major die-offs related to the water. Now there's other avian diseases like cholera that you'll start seeing even in non-connected fly lakes, but that's usually carried by snow geese. And but we've not seen any die-offs or anything like that with wildlife.
Okay. Thank you.
Jude, what do you see? Do you see there's some potential in leaky weirs and just kind of slowing the water?
Well, I do, but I see them upstream of the refuge and not directly on the refuge downstream. So I like the idea of leaky weirs. They look like beaver dams to me. If we had beavers, maybe things would be better. But I have 168 that goes through the refuge. I did actually have a small water control structure downstream that was causing the potential to flood out 168. It finally washed out. So I got a major highway or farm to market road, whether you believe it or not, that I've got to tend to when I release water out of that dam. But downstream, there are a lot of what I would say old dams that I don't think people really realized until they filled up this year.
Okay.
And I think, the right in Texas is if you can capture it, you can keep it, right?
Yeah.
So I think historically people have put up small dams to catch water.
Yeah.
Just weren't expecting this much water this year, but I like the idea of it.
Okay. We got a couple questions to get to. Alex Hunt.
I'm just wondering about access to the land and the value of that. Of course, I've been to Buffalo Lake, and I've been on some of the land in the canyon between Buffalo Lake and the city of Canyon. And you're right, it's an amazing landscape in there. And I know this. I know we live in Texas. I know what private property is about. But I wonder if part of the discussion can't be, the possibility of greater access of like permits for walkthroughs or even guided hikes along the Tierra Blanca, to show people what's there, because until people know, it's hard to have this conversation in a larger sense, as much good work as Darryl and others are doing. I just wonder if you all have thoughts on that.
Alex, I think we talked about this before, the city of Canyon having some kind of walking trail access to Tierra Blanca more than there's now. And not to mention upstream, in those canyons and things. So maybe that's something we can carry forward with as follow-up, how something like that might happen.
We could
Mark?
certainly talk about it at Dove Creek because we already are public in many ways.
Yeah. And I've
So
been in there once or twice. That's wonderful, wonderful country in there.
Good.
Thank you.
Marty, you had a question?
Yeah, actually, kind of more of a comment, I think.
Okay.
And wanted to point out a tool that Parks and Wildlife has developed called the Environmental Flow Information Toolkit, and I'll put a link to that in the chat. And it was designed to help distinguish areas for flow protection and flow restoration. And so might be something that this group could potentially use. It's all based on like voluntary donations of water and those kind of things. But just wanted to mention it. And I could, you can get in the link and kind of play around with the tool yourself. And I'd also be happy to come back and talk to y'all and kind of show you how to go through it if that would be helpful. The other thought, I was looking and again, like, want to just say thanks. I'm not familiar with Tierra Blanca, but I really enjoyed hearing about it, especially the cultural stuff, and was kind of doing the same as Catla was following along on Google Earth as you were talking, and looks like an amazing place. I was looking at some of the existing water quality information on it from the TCEQ, and it doesn't look like they have sampled it routinely since 2001. So, part of their, job, I guess, is to go out and assess surface water. And they have coordination meetings once a year, usually in the springtime, where each river basin will talk about, the sampling that's going to come up in the following year. So just wanted to throw that out as a potential idea that, they work with stakeholders and they'd be willing to listen to a need, like if there's a need to go out and collect more water quality on Tierra Blanca, that could be a potential way to get some data on the water quality of the stream.
Really helpful. Thank you for
And
that.
a quick question for Will, if I have time. The Beaver Dam analogs, the things y'all were doing out there were really cool looking, and looks like y'all captured some water this spring. And you said there's about a 6-month time for that to get down to Palo Duro. Did I hear that right?
Well, that would be like aspirational. And so no, like right now, I think it takes, maybe days to get from like Hereford to Powder Canyon, but the goal would be to spread that out over as much time as we can.
Okay, gotcha.
Great.
All right,
I think we're to the wrap up now, and I really appreciate all of you being on. Sorry, there's not much more room to make comments, but I think we got some good perspectives from landowners, and stakeholders, users of the draw. The creek. And Will, kudos on that map. I should have used that one. You had a nice map there, and I'm glad the rest of you found it on Google Earth. And but anyway, I was just giving you my visual history as a human. I bet I cross Tierra Blanca 200 times a year just because of how it lays east and west. We want to continue this, and part of that will be at the water conference on 21st, 22nd of March. So if this is interesting to you, make sure you get on that bus tour number 2 to go out to Wildcat Bluff and look at some of these leaky weirs. And you'll get to hear Catlo on Friday the 22nd, and Andrew Millison also talking about permaculture techniques in general, but also Mr. Bennett, Andrew Bennett on the first day will talk about working like beavers. So this is going to be addressed by a couple of speakers, but I would think that I would tell you that stream bed restoration is certainly something that's going to come up and that we'll follow up on. So this is our first effort at it today. We'll have 3 more of these roundtables, the next one in June, and August and in November. So those invitations will go out to all of you. In the meantime, we also have field days. So we will have a field day on the 16th of April, Stewarding Aquifer Field Day at Wildcat Bluff or Wild West, one of those two, where it's easiest for us to get in and get a bigger presentation from Will Masters and Warren Thedford and others. And then again, another chance to go out and look at these techniques. So if you don't take that tour at the water conference, there'll be another chance in April. So playa field days and other things coming up as well. And we have this call recorded, so we can share that with people if they didn't get on. And Jody, we'll put your comments in there too, your page of comments, but that's really helpful. So I appreciate everyone, all of you, for being on today, and thanks. And we will see you next month or down the road somewhere.
Thanks, Darryl. Thanks, everyone.
All the best. Okay.
Bye, everyone.